that Roy is videotaping this session, so if anybody afterwards would like a video, please see him. He's in the tree. And he will make those available as well as ones from previous Sundays. Okay, so now it's joke time, huh? Okay, this is called the Mexican Maid, which seemed appropriate. The Mexican maid asked for a pay increase. The wife was very upset about this and decided to talk to her. She said, "Now, Maria, why do you want a pay increase?" Maria said, "Well, Senora, there are 3 reasons why I want an increase. The first is that I iron better than you." "Why, who said you iron better than me?" "Your husband, he say so." "Why, oh yeah?" "The second reason is that I am a better cook than you." "Nonsense," said the wife. "Who said you were a better cook than me?" "Your husband did." Wife, agitated, "Oh, he did he?" "Maria, the third reason is that I am better at sex than you in the bed." Wife, really boiling now and through gritted teeth. "And did my husband say that as well?" Maria, "No, Senora. The gardener did." So how much raise do you want? Well, we've got, are the baskets not quite finished yet? We'll do a couple. These are entitled How the Fight Started. One year I decided to buy my mother-in-law a cemetery plot as a Christmas gift. The next year I didn't buy her a gift. When she asked me why, I replied, "Well, you still haven't used the gift I bought you." And that's how the fight started. One more. My wife and I were watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire while we were in bed. I turned to her and said, "Do you want to have sex?" "No," she answered. I then said, "Is that your final answer?" She didn't even look at me this time, simply saying, "Yes." So I said, "Then I'd like to phone a friend." And that's when the fight started.
You folks had the baskets.
Okay, I think the baskets are done now. So today's meditation will be led by Karuna.
The baskets are not done.
They're not done? Oh, you want more? More. Is that what you're telling me? Okay. Okay. When our lawnmower broke, my wife kept nagging me to get it fixed, but I always had something else to take care of. Finally, she thought of a clever way to make her point. I found her seated in the tall, unmowed grass, busily snipping away with a tiny pair of scissors. I watched silently for a short time and then went into the house. I was gone only a minute, and when I came out again, I handed her a toothbrush. I said, "When you finish cutting the grass, you might as well sweep the driveway." And that's how the fight started. Okay. So now, Karuna. Hard act to follow, huh?
Here we are again, sitting under this magnificent tree. It's so magnificent that it even covered the gazebo. So all of us are sitting under this magnificent tree, ready for our weekly ritual, which has become a favorite activity of many of us. I always look forward to this moment when I am surrounded by like-minded spirits, and particularly to this moment of meditation, where we allow ourselves the gift of silence and thus communicate with the beauty surrounding us and with like-minded friends and life companions present as well. Closing your eyes might allow you to direct your consciousness inward. Acknowledge your feelings at this moment. make it a habit to ask yourself what is going on emotionally inside of you at each moment. This question will point you in the right direction. Now contact your physical body, your beautiful, magnificent body, which is your vehicle for this life experience. How is it feeling today? Acknowledge any physical sensation that is present. Now acknowledge nature's concert. Listening with intention activates the non-conceptual intelligence within us. That in you that notices the song of the birds is not the thinking mind. It is stillness. It is presence. It is the eternal in you that you are allowing to become present. By listening attentively to the song of the birds, you silence the mind, the thinking mind. When the mind is silent, you access your own inner resources. Being highly aware, return again to the song of the birds, or to the silence, or to the space between each tweet of the birds. Being highly aware but not thinking is the essence of meditation. Now, is your mind still active? That's okay. Whatever state you're in is good enough. It is enough to accept what is here, now, internally and externally. Whatever you accept, you go beyond. This is a miracle. If you fight it, you're stuck with it. Along your day, whenever you can, you may choose to take a brief respite from the whirlwind of life and tune in with your feelings, with your body sensations, with the song of nature, with the magnificent mountains or the sky. There is one certain criterion by which you can measure your success in this practice: the degree of peace that you feel within. Now, without losing contact with the peaceful feeling within, return. Take a deep breath and welcome the present moment.
Thank you, Karuna. That was lovely. Okay. Our presenter today is another familiar face to you, Kat Miller. Her presentation is called So Now What? This is an extraordinary time for most of us to finally live our lives without obligations running the show. What do we really, really want? How can we give ourselves permission to spend our days reflecting what we love, believe, and care for? How do we let go of the old stuff that holds us back? Kat explores the secrets of living a joyful, fulfilling life now, while not discounting our and the world's suffering. Kat Miller has an MA in spiritual psychology and is a counselor, teacher, and group leader in Ajijic and abroad. Her passion is to deepen her capacity and the capacity of her clients and students to live freely, truthfully, and fully. She will soon be offering a class on this topic at the Lake Chapala Society. Please join me now in welcoming Kat Miller. Did I take your notes? I do that every time.
Jokeless, what would happen?
There, no more. No more. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I told somebody I was nervous and they said to imagine you all naked. Except for Blue, she said don't do the first row. Now I know why. The first row. Can everybody hear me well? You got me in the gazebo? So, now is the time, right? Because there's no other time. The cool thing about being our age, and you've heard me speak about this before, if you've heard me speak, is that our obligations that were predominantly running our life when we were younger are complete. It isn't that we don't still have obligations, but that momentum to raise our children, to make our living, and to find out sort of who we were as we stumbled through life is sort of finished. Now we have the opportunity to live joyous, full, abundant lives, no matter what's going on in our lives. And that's a relatively new idea, because it used to be that what was going in our lives dictated how we felt and how we acted. And that was agreed upon in society and our cultures, particularly, the Canadian, the American, the Western cultures. How I feel is how I am. How I feel is how I act. That doesn't have to be the case. The new science in psychology and neuroscience is pointing out that we can actually shift our thinking. We can pick our attention up from one thing and move it over to something else, even in the midst of a hard moment. And we can also trust, as we've all gone through hard moments, that in a really hard moment or emergency situation, our body actually kicks in and sort of takes care of it. We don't plot in the moment of an actual event that needs that kind of attention. So we can sort of relax back in and just let ourselves be, knowing that our bodies, in the moment of a car wreck or the death or the falling of somebody, that we will actually kick in. It's the way we're built. So I want to start with this Martha Graham quote that, to me, just brings it all together. There's a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. One of us in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. So this is the pivotal part of my work right now, is to see how, given how things are, how can we live fully? How can we live a self-expressive life? And the way that I'm using self-expression is not just to talk about art and painting and writing and what we think of as sort of the arts, but really the art of living. That we are self-expressive, that we live out loud, that we live the unique individuality of who we are on the outside, even if that outside is in a room where other people don't see us, but that there's an out loudness to how we live, and that we cover that body, mind, and spirit. So for some of us, we're very self-expressive in one area of our life and maybe shut down in one and kind of semi-open in another. And what I want to engage is the possibility of being expressive out loud in more arenas of our life. And of course, we're not really divided up into arenas, but for the purpose of conversation, it kind of makes sense. So self-expression doesn't look like anything in particular, but it does follow. It follows curiosity, inspiration, longing, creativity, and playfulness. And when we do that, what I've noticed for myself and my clients and my friends is that support comes. So if we start thinking about something that we're wanting to do, the next thing you sort of notice is there's a notice on a bulletin board, you overhear a conversation in a restaurant, you trip over a piece of paper that says, class starting on Tuesday, that support comes, that we need to sort of let life know what it is we want. This is my little. Self-expression is strumming the strings of our unique instrument as if we are a golden mandolin carved by every second of our life. Oh my God, I didn't know I was a poet. So the best way to learn about how to be self-expressive is to look at children. And the cool thing is we were all children, though many of us don't remember it, can't imagine that we were. But adult version of being childlike is living as a child that has not been silenced and with the advantages of being an adult with a touch of wisdom. So you see children, they're curious about everything. They have questions, they inspect, they stare, they taste things, they spit them out. Literally, like, we all did that. They climb trees, they can look at a leaf for the longest time, turn it over, follow the tracks of an ant. That doesn't get turned off. Like as we get older, certain things diminish and other chemicals come on and the hormones change. That capacity to be playful and curious, inspired, creativity, to be creative about how we solve problems. We're all creative, obviously. We couldn't be here today if we weren't. It takes a lot to live a life. You have to be pretty dang creative. So if we can, for those of us that are shut down, maybe all together, though they're probably not in this crowd, because if you were shut down completely, you wouldn't even come. You'd go, screw it, who cares? I ain't going to hear something, yeah. So it's built within us to live out loud. It's built within us to interact with the world. Again, this doesn't take away from introverts or for people whose joy is to research and study something and read about it and think about it and maybe email with a friend or two. It's fine to be interior. This is not saying, when I say out loud, I'm not saying you must be showy in the world or that even necessarily another person needs to know about it. Though frequently it does happen, right? So today, why am I speaking here? Because I'll tell you, I'm so dang nervous. What would be the point? Because I'm following my passion. I'm not making my passion, I'm following it. And that's what we do. Linda Dunham, my friend who is by me, she follows her art. It came to her a bit later in life the way it's come in now. And she follows that art. She frequently says, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing this thing and it sells and people, that's following. So we don't actually have to make it up. Sorry. Okay. So Ajijic is a great place to see how this works. We are like this little intensive study. I mean, maybe we will be studied later by scientists. They'll come in hazmat suits and check us out for a variety of things. How is it that they're doing this? And how is it that they're doing that? But one of them is to see what it looks like to live out loud, because there are many people here who are doing things for the first time. Some things that they never dreamed of, and some things that they loved when they were young, maybe in their 20s, but maybe got set aside for really good reasons, like raising children and making a living and building a home and a family and dealing with the challenges of illness and, who knows, poverty, all kinds of things. But people here, everybody's met people who said, I never touched an artist brush until 3 months ago. And then there's tap dancing, of course, which just blows the whole thing out of the water. It's like, really, that should be just study on that. I never tapped, but I can. People there, you can see them standing at Super Lake in the line. So we're great for looking at that, people living out loud. We are also a good place to study how not to. So one of the issues here is alcoholism. We have depression, alcoholism, mindless watching of TV is one of the symptoms of being blocked. I mean, we all do a little bit of it. Let's say excessive, otherwise I'll have to be one of these people. There's people here who are living lives of the expression, lives of quiet desperation, who have no oomph, don't care about anything, have no sense of wanting to do anything. Upon being asked, what would you like to do? Nothing is the answer. It's a true answer. It's an answer that, for me as a therapist, indicates that something has been shut down. The good news is what the shutdown is that underneath, because we all have the built-in capacity, I believe it can be turned back on. Now, if there's mental illness, certain brain illnesses, and depression that has not been adequately medicated, if it's an organic depression, then that's maybe not the case. There are exceptions to this, but I think even with depression that can be medicated, the lights can turn back on to opening up to inspiration and desire. We all share the issues of life. We've all gone through things. We're all going through things now. There's divorce and illness and just a general sense of sadness. There's grief over the past. We share that. That's not unusual. And that does not have to interfere, actually, and I don't mean that in any sense of disrespect, because these issues are hard and they're big and they impact us deeply, but they do not actually have to stop us coming forward, us living life from the inside out. So the blocks, what are the blocks? So if this is natural to live fully and out loud, to follow playfulness, what are the blocks? So in a nutshell, and then I'll break the nutshell down. In a nutshell, it's allowing the past to live our present. Allowing the past to live our present. So when we're young, what could have happened that starts to put blocks in place is parents. Our parents' issues. Our siblings. Some of us came from homes where the sibling fight was devastating. Schools. 4th grade school teacher said you can't draw. Your older sister said you didn't actually belong to this family and you were... That's actually to be sort of a common one. Oh no, you were adopted. We picked you up. Being uncoordinated. I grew very quickly. You can see I achieved some height. And there was a period of time when I was young and you were learning kickball and all kinds of things where I was just actually falling over. My knees were just buckling and I was just gangly and it wasn't working. But those things began to create an opinion of ourselves. I can't do art. I can't draw. My family, I'm supposed to just shut up. Nobody likes it when I'm playful. My parents say be quiet. Just because they have 7 kids and they need us to be quiet. It affects us. When we're older, we have the disappointments of loss and divorce and illness and, who we thought we were gets played with quite a few times in our life, sometimes if we're lucky, actually. And then what happens out of that? If we've been hurt enough, we can shut down. And we can shut down selectively, too. It doesn't have to be in all areas of our lives. We can shut down. In the shutdown, I can't believe what I was going to say, actually. I don't know what I was going to say. In the shutdown, we lose our ability, but it's a safety mechanism, right? I don't want to be hurt. I can't afford to have my heart broken. I don't want to try again and not be able to succeed. So you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm not opening to that possibility of being hurt. Because I mentioned here before in a talk before, when we've been hurt, sometimes we take that to believe that that's who we are, that we don't have any more capacity to live fully, that we're going to be burdened by that hurt and those pains that we suffered in our life forever. And we saw this in our families. We maybe saw it in our grandparents. We maybe saw it with our parents. we saw them have things that they never could get over. And that's a very predominant belief. We grew up in that atmosphere, whether each of us individually sees that differently. We grew up in the atmosphere that there are some things you can just not get over, and they take you down for a lifetime. That doesn't have to be true. It can be true. It certainly can be true. And it isn't that we aren't always affected. We are. So one of the studies in the States right now was done by a Nobel laureate. He won the Nobel Prize recently. Is that the largest percentage of early death in the U.S. is middle-aged white people. Second to blacks. All the other, in all the developed countries in the world, early death is diminishing. In all races, all groups of people, it's going down. In the United States, it's going down, except for middle-aged white people. This is fascinating. They don't know why. There's some postulation, but for my purposes, it's just important to note that it exists, that alcohol, and what's killing them is not, they're taking out diabetes and heart attacks, they're taking out all the normal high blood pressure, all those factors, saying even if you take those out, they're still the highest. What it is alcohol, suicide, painkiller-like drugs. Disease of the liver is the alcohol part, disease of the liver. So this is very, very meaningful. One of the postulates is that they are, that their life, how they saw themselves, their life narrative got altered. And there's some political thoughts about that in 2008 as the economy and things turned. But anyway, something happened in that how they thought their life was going to be went poo-boom. That they're pretty sure, they're not sure what the factors are of the poo-boom. Okay? But this is important because we have also had our narratives changed throughout our life. And for some of us that aren't doing so well, we're letting that narrative describe us now, letting it define us now. And, my thing is we don't have to, but we do want to honor it. We do want to honor it. And my heart goes out. I mean, this whole group of middle-aged white people, which I'm on the top end of middle-aged white person. So, to me, the most important part of the talk is what I'm going to say now. And that's about heartbreak. I believe that the secret to living life fully is to be open to heartbreak. We all share it. Everyone here has experienced it. It's part of the human condition. It's natural to want to prevent it, to push it aside. But every person within a couple of people we know has experienced a lot of things, particularly at this age. This is the vantage point of the third act, is that we've seen enough. So in your 20s, maybe not so much in your 30s, getting there in your 40s, maybe you've had one horrible in your teens, but by now, I think, we're mostly over 60, by now, we've had a bunch of stuff. So the thing is not to go, oh my God, it's to go, oh my God. This is part of the human condition. We don't have to hide or protect ourselves. We can actually open with everybody else on the planet who is suffering stuff all the time. We don't have to be any different than we are to be connected to people and to let ourselves live life fully. So it's sort of hard to say, let's all be happy and, take my class and, self-express when there's so much going on in the world. From my perspective, being unhappy or despondent does not actually help the world suffering. Because one of the forms of self-expression is following what awakens for you in the midst of the despair of the world, so that you actually can address it versus what we tend to do, many of us, is just to shut down and go away, back off. In the land of self-expression, We can let our heart be broken, feel it, and maybe, if it's in us, to do something. Tiny, big, whatever. But in the mode of going, out, push out, keep it out, actually a tendency just to back away and do nothing. And doing nothing is fine too. I'm not suggesting that people have to do something. I'm saying in the world of where we open to pain, instead of protect, shut, and push away, we can actually see what's possible. And it's the same way for the pain of ourselves. If I can tell the truth about what I'm going through in any given moment, whether that's a moment of depression or loss or uncertainty, and I can be with that and not have to make it go away, then I can see what else is also here. What's here at the same time as my upset about whatever. So it's a wider aperture for life. And being unhappy does not help the suffering of the world. Letting unhappiness in and being affected by it can help the suffering of the world. Because maybe we will open our hearts and do our little chunks of it. So to me, it really is the secret to living fully, is to be a compassionate, open heart. Which all it takes, you don't have to create compassion. We don't need to make it up. We're loaded with it. We come with it. It's part of the anatomy of our being is compassion. Is all we have to do is realize we're in the same boat. We're in the same boat with everybody else on the planet and the creatures and all that. And out of that deep recognition, even if it's just for a split second, because we're so oriented to being separate individuals, so if just for a moment we feel that recognition of we are in this all together, compassion naturally arises. You don't have to go, ooh, get it up. It's in my knee. I think it's stuck in my left knee. I got to pull it up. It's there. It's the natural experience of us when we walk in somebody else's shoes, which includes our own shoes versus pushing our own shoes away. So what the heck do we do about the blocks? Because there's all that old stuff, right? So one is we open to it. But first we need to ask ourselves, do we desire change? And this is a tricky question because our immediate answer could be, well, of course I do. Or, no, I don't. So we want to have that question answered at a deeper level than the immediate answer. Because really, do you desire change? Because what can come up in asking oneself that question is, but I don't believe it's possible. That's the big one. That's why a lot of us don't do things. Why I don't do things. I don't think it's possible. I don't think I can have what I really want. I think that if I went for it 100%, I might not get it. And you're going to do it. It's too heartbreaking. Right? So, do you desire change? And if you do, what would that actually feel like in your body? What would that look like? What would your life look like if you were living a full life? You don't have to use my words of expression or express yourself or living life fully. But what would it look to live a life of fulfillment? And I'm not talking about, again, shoving away the crap. Crap gets to be there too, the hard part. What would it look like? Feel like, be like. So answering these two questions opens up a field of support. So if your answer is, I don't want to change, that means help. Get some help. I don't want to change. It means I'm scared, I'm shut down, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. So that opens up, once you realize that, to get some support. And if you do want to change, and you get a sense of what it looks like, feels like, and what it would be like, again, the world will kind of come in and start to show you that stuff again. You know, overhearing the conversation, talking with a lost friend who's into what you just were thinking about. Life will come in and bring it in. It's much easier to go towards something if we really know what it is. So it really is when you look at what you want and how you want to live, you want to feel it. What would it feel like? If I was playing the oboe today, I've been playing it now for a year. What would that feel like for me to be playing the oboe getting through a complete song that I wanted to play. What would that be like? And so I let myself tune in and feel it. Easier to bring it about when you have a felt sense of it. And you kind of imitate. And I picked an oboe, which I don't want. I hope now the universe, I'm kidding. Nobody bring me an oboe. I'm not really looking for the universe support of oboe playing. But it was an example. The other thing I think we can do about blocks is, which I'm pretty excited about. I've done this with my groups in the past in the States, and I'm going to do it here soon, is to do a life review from the perspective of gratitude. A deep acknowledgement of your life as it has been and is. Without revising it, but bringing in the perspective, that shift. So we look at things in all different ways, right? I kind of like that image of a facet of a jewel. If we just shift to the other facets, we're going to shift to the gratitude facet and look at our lives. We have the opportunity to see ourselves from a larger perspective and also to see what has come out of the rough spots. The beauty that's come out of them. I understand there's damage. There's things we quit, we don't do, we don't believe we deserve, we think we're stupid, whatever those things are. But in the midst of even those things, there's beauty there and things worth to appreciate. How the hard times weave through our life, and then of course the beautiful times. So this life review, and I have techniques or whatever to help elicit it, but really to look back through our life, to deeply acknowledge our life. We spend a lot of time wanting to change our life and to wish it was different. And what's possible is to actually acknowledge it as it is, as it has been lived. I mean, what the hell? Everybody did a crappy job. I mean, what's the difference? We've all failed and tried. And I realized that I left something out that I wanted to do earlier. And I'm going to go back to it for a minute, and then I'm going to come back to developing curiosity. So what I'd like us to do, I'm going to go back to the heartbreak piece for a minute. What I'd like to do is I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to raise your hand if they are true for you or anybody you know. So you're not going to actually be divulging your own personal experience. I'm not asking you if you're an alcoholic or you're whatever. I'm saying I'm going to be asking you. And I'd like you to look around so that this is not just for my knowledge, that I get to see all your hands, but that you get to see it. So raise your hand if the following apply to you or anyone you know personally. You or anyone you know personally. Divorce? Look around. Okay. Illness? Illness? You or anybody you know personally? Illness? Loss of money?
Loss of or loss of?
Loss of money. Death of a child. Depression or mental illness. Alcohol or drug use. Are people seeing? Are you kind of looking at each other's hands? Is this an abusive parent? Sort of. I'm actually, I knew this was going to happen, but I'll tell you, it's stunning to see all your hands go up. Big disappointments. Big disappointments.
Bingo.
Betrayals. So, what are we noticing? We, or everybody we know, and these are just a little bit of the list, small amount of the horrible stuff. We, or everybody we know, has suffered at these things. We really, truly have an opportunity just to become part of the humanity, to let ourselves be human, to let ourselves be in this together. Everybody that cuts us off on the roadway and everybody that's, mean and nasty, they've had a not saying don't say something, but you know, we are in this together more than we are separate. So, I also want you to play another game. Take that off a little bit. Ooh, a lot of misery, right? And just brought it up, everybody. Divorce and illness. Ah! Okay. We're going to play a cultivating curiosity game. So I'd like you to look around you right now and let your eyes light on something that draws you, or even kind of draws you. It can be a color, an image, a person. Maybe not necessarily a person, because I'm up front. So just look at that thing. And if you were to be curious about it, what would you want to know about it or experience with this thing that you're looking at? If you were to be curious about it, what would you want to know about it? What might you want to experience with it? Everybody have a sense of that? So this is curiosity. This is following curiosity. It's not creating curiosity, though you did, because it's not something that maybe really draws you in everyday life. So think of it if it was something that actually drew you versus whatever you picked. The purple dot. I don't know how curious you could be about it, but this is what it looks like to follow curiosity. Something speaks to us, like the purple dot just did to me. Purple dot. I notice it. And if I'm open and willing, I follow it. Now, you don't follow everything because you'd be just a nutcase. But the things that you're actually interested in, or if you're not interested now, you start to look around and find what interests you. Is it the blue? Is it the movement of the trees? What is it? And if you're interested in nothing, you get help. There's so much help. There's books, there's therapists, there's teachers, there's all kinds of help and support. There's our friends, there's help. Because to not be curious, to not feel inspired, to not play, be playful, right? Because what happens is we get adults, we learn to do things right. And there's nothing that cuts out playfulness like you doing something right. That's why kids, they can throw it up and it falls and they fall. And we, when we were young, you know, you get back up, you laugh, you try it again. So those things are our birthright. And I believe it's very important that we do this. I believe that if our generation, this group of people, as elders, if we show our children and our grandchildren and those we know, that we know how to live life, even after all the challenges we faced in life, we are role models for what is possible for the younger people as they come up, as they go through the hard moments, because they're not going to end. The next generation is not going to suffer less than us. They're already suffering. They're already in hard parts. So we want to be able to show them that, you know what, honey, you can make it through this. We can thrive, actually. We don't have to be taken down by things that happen in our life. We may need to get help with them. We may need to work with them, to clear them, to do whatever it takes, but we can. That's my message. Living life expressively, out loud, openly, joyfully, in the midst of our suffering and the world's suffering. Thank you.
Now we've got some time for questions and comments. If you'll raise your hand, someone will come to you with a mic. Do we need this extra mic, guys, or do you have enough? Okay, and stand up, please, and ask your question.
I do have a question, but I have something to share first. I love the part about curiosity, and the part about heartbreak hits right home for me, so I'm hoping I can get into your class. And about curiosity, if any of you are curious about lots of things that are out in our community. I can't give a, what it is, what
No,
is
you
it?
cannot.
No, but I can say, if you're curious, you might be curious about things that are on the bulletin board out in LDS. Is that,
That's subtle.
is that
sort of.
subtle enough? Okay, and my question is that I have taken classes. In fact, my husband and I just finished a couples retreat. And what I find challenging is after the class is over, after the therapy is over, after the retreat is over, how do I keep those positive changes that I've decided I want to do? How do I keep it going? Because the blocks seem to come up as I get farther and farther
Yeah,
out
they
from
do.
the work.
They do. So that's a really good point, and that is what happens to most of us, or maybe even all of us. The thing is to hook up with a buddy. At least the minimum is to hook up with a buddy who's also interested, even if they didn't take that particular retreat, but is interested in staying open. Maybe they're working on a particular project in their life that they're wanting to do. You hook up with yours. You want to stay alive and interested in growing in this one area. You come together for coffee. You support each other. What are you going to do this week about it? I work with a mastermind buddy. I wouldn't go back. I would always do that in my life now. I've been doing it for years. It's fabulous. That's one way. That, and you try to form a group with maybe the people you just did the retreat with. You do need to stay immersed in it, right? Because the old stuff comes up. It's waiting. Come on back. We've got depression over here for you. Right on back. Just like it used to be. Come on.
Another question? Wait for the mic.
Hi, thank you, Kat. I found the thing about the middle-aged people dying more than they used to interesting. I thought it was men, but maybe it's all white people. But it reminded me, when I was in graduate school, there was a similar statistic about dentists, the highest suicide rate being among that profession. And I just wonder if it's maybe a phenomenon that if you look for it, you find it. We knew it was there with dentists, but I wonder if we didn't look at all white men and see that it's there too. That's my first one.
Okay.
It's something you may want to look at. And number two, thank you. That's a very difficult talk to give without doing a B-52 and thinking about your own life at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think if you look for it, you'll find it is probably, the truth. These statistics are so crazy. I don't know if you looked at the graph, because I'm thinking you read that article maybe. It's like really, I mean, it's big. It's crazy.
First of all, I want to thank whoever is in charge of this wonderful group. I'm Mexican and really admire the foreigners that come to this country, and do something for us. I'm coming now from Canada because my children now are all over the world, and I'm coming to live in eco housing, which is going to be built here near Ajijic. And I really think that what you said is true. Like once you start dreaming, the dream started with my daughter, that she found eco-housing in Canada. And if you follow that desire, like something happens, and I really admire your posture in life. I mean, like it's a very positive, everybody has gone through something. And I made some little notes to reflect after that. And I really just want to express my thanks for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Community does a lot. You felt pretty fully in Lakeside.
Kat, the part that struck me is the seeing life with gratitude, making a new version of your life now through gratitude. I was a victim, I think, 30 or more years. I love, being victim. They done this to me, They really hurt me. And then one day I woke up from the victim role, and I was not a victim anymore. So now this is a new perspective. Now I can join your group and I can see my life through the eyes of gratitude. Every single event that happened in my life contributed to be the person I am now and to begin there. I am just grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, you know, and in that too, in the attitude of gratitude and looking at our life through the lens of gratitude going back, we don't say we weren't hurt. And we don't say that maybe we were so young that we were actually powerless. We were a victim for a moment. We certainly can be victims. If we're a victim at 70 when we talk about something that happened when we're 20, then we have an issue. But the attitude of gratitude actually embraces that too. I thought I was a victim for 30 or so years, just to use your example, Karuna. And now I see that differently. Even that has its place and its beauty, right? We can go, wow, that's how I saw it. That's how I experienced it. And in this moment, I can even appreciate that. How hard that was. How lovely that was. But it's going to be a personal story.
That was a very good talk. I really enjoyed it. It helped me a lot. Some 30 years ago, I was involved in a volunteer program. I don't recall exactly where it was, but it was with high school students. And they were dealing with the same thing that you were talking about, problems that they had in their life and how to be happy and to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And what they did is they put all of us, I can't remember, there must have been hundreds of young people in this gym. And they used the gymnasium because it was large enough. And in the gymnasium, they drew in the middle of the gymnasium a red line.
Oh, I know.
Okay. And then everybody had to form, there were 3 lines, so they could accommodate everybody. So there were 50 people behind a black line and 50 students behind another black line. And what the facilitator did was ask questions like you did. How many come from divorced families? How many have used drugs? How many have been sexually abused, etc.? If that were the case, the students, they would cross the red line. Well, how many of you have problems with being prejudiced? Because there were all races there. And it was like everybody crossed the red line with every single question.
It's being used with gang work.
Yeah.
It's a very
Wonderful.
What they do is they'll put like the Bloods and the Crips on 2 sides of the line. Those are 2 big gangs in California. And they'll so they're facing each other and they have them move forward. It's really working well
It's
because the
wonderful.
kids, they pass the lines, they pass into each other's territory, and they see the commonality.
And everybody is very accepting of one another again. Everybody ended up hugging.
Well, it's very moving. I've seen some of the videos of it. There was one gal about being abused when she was little, and the other gang just eventually, because she just kept moving forward with everything, right? Alcohol, sexual abuse, everything. And I see it. And then it's falling. And she just kept moving forward, and somehow the kids around noticed her, and the other gang just, they did this like huge group hug. So, thank you. Yeah, we're human beings.
I have this, shall we say,
Can I hear you?
Dream.
Louder. Closer.
okay. I have this dream which never comes to pass, and that is that there are ways in which we can meet people that we have things in common with, and not be so cautious, men or females, and find somebody that we can be devoted to. And, you know, it would work. I mean, they'd be devoted to each other, or if you can't find 2, find 4 or 6 or something, so they have enough, so that they can feel like they're in a family. And why is it so hard?
Well, you know, I know you're recent to here. I don't know how recent it is for you, but you're actually standing in the place, right? This group here, on the boards, on the Lake Chapala Society boards, there is everything from tap dancing to learning about tequila. I mean, it's all here, and people are here.
And Christmas concert is coming up, and it'll be like all other Christmas concerts, you know. We'll be looking at other singles
Well, you know what?
Really talking to them.
I disagree. I agree that it's your personal experience, and I'm sorry for that. And you are in the right place, though. You keep looking, you keep putting out your intention, you're putting it out in this moment. You will, it will come to pass. Because this is a group of people, when we move here, and the people that are locals that live here, the Mexicans that live here, we are really interested in developing meaningful relationships.
Thank you
So,
for,
keep the hope, keep the...
thank you for making this very sensitive and real.
Anybody else?
One back here.
Hello, thank you for your talk today, and I just wanted to mention a little bit of a program that I watched this morning called The Brain Game, and it's about the effect of positive attitudes, positive thinking, and how much it affects our perception, and how much that affects our health, well-being, and interaction. And if you ever get a chance to watch that, it's short. Zip through the commercials, it takes 15 or 20 minutes, and it's really very, very helpful.
Thank you for that.
Is that it?
I do have a sign-up sheet, business card.
Under the tree. So will you be starting this class soon, Kat?
Yeah.
Is that what the sign-up is about?
Yeah, I'm starting this class in mid-January.
Mid-January. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, everybody, thank you again for coming, and don't forget to come next time to hear the sacred and profane poetry of our very own Margaret Van Emery. So, as usual, if you will stack your chairs and dump your coffee cups again, please try and be out of here in 15 minutes so